Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
Okay.
Give me some champagne on the beach. I will, really watch you do anything.
Watch,
It's fine.
watch whatever.
I will watch you do anything.
After seeing all the guys,
Yep.
you having any second thoughts?
Not one. Not one. No. After seeing all the girls, are you having any second thoughts?
All right, so that's good. Cole is able to be vulnerable in a way that a lot of people on these reality shows have a hard time with, particularly the men, but really everyone. He is, I think, a little insecure, not terribly, but a little bit. And so he's wondering, hey, after seeing me and the other guys that you might have liked a little bit, but less than me in terms of in the pods conversations, what do you think? Are you still attracted to me? Do you still want to be with me? Do you have any second thoughts? And she says, not at all, not at all. And so that's good. That's a bid and then a response that is helpful. We all need those throughout our relationships, even friendships, coworker relationships. You know, you might be able to relate to this, your boss. You might want to know from your boss or from coworkers that they value you. And a lot of workplaces don't have enough of that kind of communication. And I would argue that workplace relationships need more of that reassurance. My hypothesis is that she has some sensitivities around this sort of thing, but she seems to be able to bounce back. We saw that in the previous episode, the previous set of episodes, where she seemed to have some triggers regarding abandonment worries and distortions that are in line with that. It's hard for me to know if she was distorting or not because they didn't have the footage. Her reactions seemed commensurate with distortion, at least to some extent, but I don't know. But then later on in the day, she was able to differentiate and say, you know what, I can be, sensitive sometimes, so you're just going to have to call me out on that. So at that point, I was like, well, maybe they will be able to work this out. I think that for Cole, and I think some people are reacting to him in this way, that he'll come across as arrogant or self-centered, that sort of thing. And yeah, demeanor-wise, we saw that when we first met him, when he was being interviewed. He was just like, he gave off this impression like before he just had this super easy time meeting women because he's so awesome and so beautiful or something like that. And it certainly came, and then he's like, I don't do nurses, that whole thing. It's like, huh? So yeah, but since then, I think he has exhibited a lot of emotional intelligence, and at least seemingly, I don't know. I mean, you could say that he's a little passive aggressive, even though he accuses her of being that way, in the way that he tries to communicate that he's hurt. But I don't know. Overall, I think he's doing a pretty good job of navigating things. But so now she's going to ask, and remember this might just be the previous day or two where they had a conversation off camera, but then they were on camera talking about the conversation that they had, and she said something like, I'm having a great time, or our relationship is great, or something like that. And then he said, yeah, it's really good. It's really good. I love it, or something like that. And she focused in on the word good. It's like, well, that must mean you don't really love me. And then she got angry and hostile with him. So he probably is going to be very careful about his words here. Let's see how they manage.
Wow, it's the hesitation for me. It's the hesitation.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's going to trigger anyone. That's going to worry anyone, particularly at their phase of relationship. But let's rewind that because I interrupted, and it's hard to really grasp the hesitation.
After seeing all the girls, are you having any second thoughts? Wow, it's the hesitation.
I mean, I think they edited that a little bit, but I think it was clear that there was a hesitation there, and it makes sense. He's being honest in this moment. He might even be a little afraid to respond honestly. He might be freezing up, or he's playing a game or something, but it would make sense. It would be totally rational for him at this point to have second thoughts. Absolutely. Not that it's necessarily that he wants to leave her. I think he's willing to see if they can iron out their wrinkles in the relationship. But yeah, I mean, the first full day that they had together in person, they had some pretty big fights about things that I don't think he would think that it was necessary to fight about. So let's see how he manages. I would hope that, I'm guessing given his mindset, if I understand where he's at correctly, which I don't know, he could say something like, look, I'm really into you and I want to see this through, and I am pretty sure I want to be with you, or I'm mostly sure I want to be with you forever, and I'm looking forward to it. Here are the things I love about you, and we have chemistry and all these kinds of things. And yesterday or the other day, we had some issues, so I'm just wondering if we're always going to fight. And I don't know if that's you or me or both of us, or it's just first time meeting each other jitters or something. I don't know. But I'm totally willing to commit to seeing this through, and I'm optimistic, but I'm also trying to be realistic about it. He could say something like that. Let's see what he says.
For me, it's the hesitation. It's the quietness. Maybe I don't even want to hear your answer.
No, I'm not having any second thoughts.
No?
Not even a little bit.
She handled that really well. On the scale of things, for sure. For other people, even given her previous behavior, she could have, flipped that table over and walked away, given the way he responded there. Because at the very least, you would hope that he would respond. Right? He didn't even say anything, as if he didn't care about her feelings or something. I don't know. But yeah, so now he's saying, no, I don't have, well, then why did you hesitate?
It's the hesitation. It's the quietness. Maybe I don't even want to hear your answer.
No, I'm not having any second thoughts.
No?
Not even a little bit. Raven's too much for me. Alexa's just not my type.
Oh, so he's answering the question, do I have any second thoughts about you in relation to the other women that I was dating in the pods? He's saying no. And I think, at least the way they're editing this, there's a possibility that Cole and Colleen might have been a better match, that they think that Cole and Colleen might think that they should be together, right?
Colleen is happily off with Matt. I mean, everyone's just wonderful, so.
I know, but you were really excited to meet Colleen, and you said that last night too. You were like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, the way he worded that would concern anyone who could read between the lines, especially if you have a lot of insecurities. He didn't say, upon meeting Colleen, I didn't want to be with her. He said, upon meeting Colleen, I learned that she's happily with Matt. So, and so now Zay is going to inquire about that. It makes sense. This conversation, the demeanor, it kind of feels like maybe after the initial jitters of meeting each other, now they both might have a little bit more realism about the situation, where they're like, well, we'll see how this goes, but if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, right? I wonder if that happens to a lot of these folks, that, it's all the tension building up to being on the show. Just imagine that you're tapped to be on the show, you're cast to be on the show months prior, you have all this build up, you're telling all these people, especially with how popular the show is, you're thinking, am I going to marry someone? Am I going to meet the love of my life? All this build up, and then you go to the pods and you don't have your cell phone or the internet, and you're just in this weird environment, and you have this sensory deprivation chamber, and all you hear are these other voices on the other side, and you're falling in love, and there's no distractions, and you just feel overwhelming love and attraction, and you get engaged, and then you meet them and you hug them and you kiss, and you're just like, oh my God, this is the best. And then you meet each other in person and you're hanging out. Presumably they have the internet and they have their phones at this point. I don't know that, but I'm just going to take a guess and say that they do. I don't know. And then there's this initial overwhelming sense of need of oh my God, I'm meeting you, and oh my God, you're not what I thought you'd look like, or whoa, you're a real human being, and all that tension and a lot of feelings. And then that passes, and then eventually you're just like, well, wait, I mean, really, this is just an elaborate Tinder, swipe right. We had, it's like when you're on Tinder, you swipe right and then you text, or you might even talk to each other on the phone or something before you meet up in person. And then you meet up, and then you're still trying to figure out. You might even over text feel really connected to someone, but if you've done enough of that, you know that, well, it proof's in the pudding, right? You got to meet and you got to hang out. There's a chemistry thing. And so they might at this point feel like, well, it might work out, but it might not. And that's okay. It's not the end of the world. The way that they're talking, it seems like that. And that would be totally rational. It kind of kills the premise of the show because it's not supposed to be an elaborate Tinder date, but it would be. So their demeanor feels like that, which makes me feel better for the two of them, honestly. But then the other side of it is for some of these couples, they might benefit from having that extra push. I remember thinking this in previous seasons where if these two, or say Lauren and Cameron from season 1, they're still together, presumably, right? Because, you know, I point to that couple because the only other couple that's still together is Amber and Barnett, right? And those two, I don't know. I mean, they seem, I don't know. I don't know how healthy their relationship is. It's hard to tell. But Cameron and Lauren, at least on the surface, seem like compatible. They're getting along. Cam is very into Lauren. Lauren, I think, she's not as overt in her like love expression toward him. But anyway, so when I think about them, if they had met in real life on Tinder or in real life, would they have really hit it off? Would they have hit it off as quickly, right? There's a possibility that they wouldn't have. Now, I'm guessing they would like to believe that they would hit it off in person, and maybe they would. But there's a chance that they wouldn't, and the show might encourage people who would otherwise have walls up, right? That the commitment of that engagement, it's like it pushes past your walls. And so now you just have to kind of ride it out because there's so much pressure to get married, and then you get married and you'll figure it out later kind of a thing. Now, of course, that runs the risk of being connected to, being married to someone you're not actually connected with. I wonder if for the two of them, because I could see them working, that if they kept the mindset that the show is trying to create, would that help them to motivate them to work on their relationship and to not put up walls? I don't know.
Her and Matt.
The majority of girls that I have dated have looked more like Colleen.
Okay.
So
I can see that. I would peg you with someone that looks like Colleen.
Exactly. But
I don't understand why people would say something like that to your partner. I mean, radical honesty, I've talked about that with Bartise, right? So, but you want to be careful about, because that could really get in someone's head, even if it's true. Have I talked about this recently? I don't know if I've ever talked about it. So when you're talking to your partner about various different things that are going on in your head, previous or present or future, you want to be careful about revealing certain things. Now, there are different styles of relationships. Some relationships, there's a spectrum from fairly reserved, because you don't want to be really reserved, right? But, conservatively reserved to total radical honesty. And everyone's going to be different. Everyone's going to prefer a different thing. There's pros and cons to wherever you are on the spectrum. And I think most people are somewhere in the middle where they, for example, will talk about their previous relationships and say some details about that. I once had a boyfriend that, boy, I was really in love with him, but, I was young and I didn't really know. So you're dropping in little details about your feelings that might trigger your partner, but you're not going into full detail, and honestly, I still dream about him every night, or I don't know, something like that. Or when I see him on Facebook, I sometimes have a little bit of a longing, even though I would never want to be back with him. So, and because if you said that more honest thing, even though to you, it's not a big deal. You might, when you see your ex-boyfriend on Instagram, you might have a little bit of a longing, a little bit of a warm feeling towards them, but absolutely that you do not want to be with him, and you would never cheat on your partner, and you would never leave your partner. You love your partner. But if you put that idea in your partner, that could really do a number on their mind and on their heart, because even if you're really convincing, you try to be very convincing, look, of the truth, I'll never be with him, I don't want to be with him. But when I see him, I have this little, and it's normal to have that kind of feeling. You insert that into someone's mind, and as the people say, it'll live rent-free in someone's mind for a long time, and can really do a number, even if your partner isn't particularly insecure. Everyone is insecure to some extent. So, you insert that, it can really kind of mess with someone, right? Another detail from your past that you want to be careful about revealing is details about your sexual interactions with previous partners. Again, there's a wide variety here. Of course, there's monogamous people and polyamorous people, but even polyamorous people, sometimes they will have agreements that they don't go into detail about their sexual interactions with others because it can live rent-free in one's mind and hurt them. So there's a lot of different things that one can say, but what he is saying is Colleen is more my type. And for Zay, it could actually do that to her, right? Which could, even if most of her mind is like, well, he's just being honest. That's kind of what I thought. But are you ruining something? Are you pushing an idea into someone's mind that will really get in the way of them being open with you and trusting you, right? The other thing is Zay that much different from Colleen? What's the distinction there? And then Zay's like, yeah, totally. Is it personality type? I don't know.
But personality-wise, you are much more up my alley.
Oh, okay. So it's personality. So that would help, right? But again, every time if they do stay together, which I don't predict that they will, but they might, then every time that she sees someone that she thinks is more Cole's type, that's going to kind of get to her a little bit. Again, it's not wrong or bad, to be honest, but you just want to be careful about that sort of thing. But he says, you're more personality-wise my type, which I think what he's basing that on was the conflict that he had with Colleen, which was he was saying, look, I want to be more in-depth. I want to be more emotional, more open, more vulnerable. And so Colleen, will you please do that? And she was like, nah, I can't do that. And so hopefully he'll clarify that, because that might reassure her.
How do I do physically on your type?
Physically, you're different than anyone I've ever dated.
Oh. Is that hard for you?
Does it seem like it's hard for me?
Yeah. Why? So I wonder if for Cole, he has decided that he's done, that he doesn't want to be with her, because his demeanor is not as nice as it was the previous day. He was still kind of snarky with her, but I think he was much more on his heels, just like, hey, I thought we were good. I don't understand what's... Now he seems to be actually trying to get under her skin or something. There's so many other ways he could have responded there. And, she says, is my body your type? And he's just like, no. Could you elaborate on that? Are you saying you're not attracted to her? Now, maybe he isn't. And again, what's the difference? I haven't done a full inventory of their full look between Zay and Colleen, but to me, anyway, point is he says that, and then she's like, is that a problem? You hear that, I don't know if I'm interpreting it right, but you hear that little bit of anger, which I think is justified given what he just said and the fact that he's not trying to make her feel better about this. And then he, in a passive way, is like, does it seem like it's a problem for me? Or is he trying to say, look, when we're in bed and we're going at it, does it seem like I'm not attracted to you? I don't know. Well, and if it's that, then this might be him becoming tired of her exhibiting insecurity. In this moment, I think it's justified, but if he has incurred a lot of her hostility regarding accusations that are based on her insecurity, maybe he would mistake. We saw this with Danielle and Nick, I believe, as well, that in the beginning, Nick would try, he seemed more like, oh, Danielle, okay. But then as time went on, even when she wasn't really doing that patterned behavior that she seemed to have, he would kind of jump on her and be like, hey, and she would be saying, no, I'm not. And so are we seeing that?
I do physically on your type.
Physically, you're different than anyone I've ever dated.
Oh. Is that hard for you?
Does it seem like it's hard for me?
I don't know.
Heavy webbed. Oh, I'm good. You gotta stop patterning me up.
Yeah, either he has no idea how to communicate with people, which I don't think is true, or he has some passive aggression now that he is trying to express, that he's angry at her or doesn't want to be with her, or is not interested in trying to reassure her because he doesn't like her anymore, or he's resentful already, or something. That's kind of the theme of this whole conversation. So yeah, either he's done and is just kind of going through the motions, or most of him is done, but he can't really accept it yet, or he doesn't know how to communicate to people, or he does want to be with her, but he has a bone to pick with her because of things, and so he's communicating it this way, or he does want to be with her, but doesn't think that she's attractive or his type, and that, you know, because when you date someone, when you fall in love, when you get married, you take the good with the bad. No one is perfect. No one is your perfect person. There's always something about them that is a little different, you know. Or another way of putting it is, when you decide to spend the rest of your life with someone, if you just sat down and took an inventory of the person you're committing to and everyone else you've ever been with, there's a chance that other people you were with have some elements that were more preferred than the partner you're committing to. Am I making sense? Like, an example would be that Zay is committing to Cole, and Zay totally loves Cole and is totally into him, and he is the full package, you know, for the most part. But she's like, well, I did have this ex-boyfriend that was taller, and I like taller guys, or, you know, whatever. Or I had this previous boyfriend who was smarter or more interesting, just slightly, not terribly so, but, you know, just a little bit more. Or we shared the same cultural element, which I liked, but, you know, you can't have everything in a partner, and so it's great. It's not a very romantic thing. Of course, this isn't the sort of thing that you write in your wedding vows. You know, Valentine's cards don't usually have what I'm saying. Rom-coms don't usually. Well, sometimes rom-coms will include this kind of thing, but it is the reality. Of course, it makes sense, especially if you've had a fair number of past partners. So I don't know if he's just exhibiting that. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens.
Oh, you're okay with fattening me up though?
You're fattening yourself up.
Wow.
Yikes. What? Okay. What? That really took it over the top. Or he doesn't understand how he's coming across, or he has a terrible sense of humor, or this whole conversation has been him emotionally beating her up, which is very different from before, and awful. Awful.
I don't know.
Heavy webbed. Oh, I'm good. You gotta stop fattening me up.
Oh, you're okay with fattening me up though?
You're fattening yourself up.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Zay isn't really receiving it that way. Maybe they have an understanding that that's how they joke around with each other. You know, it's not inherently awful, but yeah, it doesn't sound very good. And I worry about these two. Although maybe that's not the feeling. Maybe what I feel is he's already done, and they're already done, and we're just gonna watch them be done, but try to act like they're not done. Is that what's happening?
Being a 30-year-old woman, I really try to not be that female that is insecure. But Cole is unfiltered 1,000% of the time. But that's part of Cole being just so transparent, which is one of the many things I love about him.
Okay. So that is directly, this show is pretty good about asking questions that are on my mind. So they managed to, or, you know, they included the footage or whatever. But okay, so she's saying that she loves that about him because that could be reassuring. And I've talked about this before, that if you're honest about that kind of thing, then there's no questions. And when he says something like, but I love you and I want to be with you forever, then it comes across as more credible. Because if you're willing to tell me things that you know might hurt my feelings, then I get, you know, you're a very honest person with me. I can trust what you're saying. You don't even have white lies to protect my feelings, so I can really bank on what you're telling me to be true. I can also know what you're really feeling, that you're not going to hide things from me. And so, you know, she loves that about him. So maybe that's a good thing that they're doing that. But I don't know. It still feels like he's turned a corner or something.
We do have the same solid foundation that we built our love on, which I hope does continue, because I in no way want a love that I have to question or be, insecure about.
Right. So it sounds like she is starting to wonder about how this relationship is going and the way he makes her feel, which is a good thing for her to think about. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of others, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.